We have to get proactive and not do passive work anymore, do aggressive work, especially because we have brilliant tools that allow us to do it.
How can you win? How can you win?
Imagine if Martin Luther King had a Facebook, like the way in which, information could have been sent out.
You can't win. The game is fixed.
I thought, I can't wait for everybody to see this video. I've been working with Kim for 5 years. She has this tremendous capacity to encapsulate difficult things in understandable ways.
If I right now decided that I wanted to play Monopoly with you, and for 400 rounds of playing Monopoly, I didn't allow you to have any money, I didn't allow you to have anything on the board.
People have asked me like, oh, was that like a pre-written speech? Did you know you were going to do that? And I was like, no, that was just me being tired and exhausted and upset.
As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this to the ground, and it still wouldn't be enough. And they are lucky that what Black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
It was super surprising to see the outpouring of support for it and the amount of, tastemakers and celebrities who were reposting and commenting on it. And I honestly couldn't even keep up with it all. Gilly would email me and be like, oh my God, it's on Madonna's page.
I would never have told this story by myself. I don't have the lived experience to do the story of a young Black woman in a moment of civil unrest on my own.
So she had her bulleted list of how she was going to convince me to write this book with her. And I was like, you had me at let's write together. Gilly and I have difficult and uncomfortable conversations all the time. It's just the nature of what's going to happen when you have a Black person and a white person writing books about race in America. So we created a safe word. It basically meant when I say this word, I am about to ask something that I'm super uncomfortable asking, or I'm about to say something that may be deemed ignorant. But we both knew going into this process that neither of us would ever intentionally do anything to harm each other.
Yeah, and as an author, it's important to think about how the way that we teach history, which especially at young ages is a series of stories that we're telling our children, who are the heroes and who are the villains? And that includes telling honest truths about the times when white people have oppressed the Black community, the Indigenous people, and others.
You broke the contract when you killed us in the streets and didn't give up. You broke the contract when for 400 years we played your game and built your wealth. You broke the contract when we built our wealth again.
The overwhelming response has been positive and have been people saying, oh my God, there's so much information in here in 6 minutes that I never learned in years of, going to school. And now I'm educating myself and my children.
This conversation has to start at home, in part because my kids are white. Kim doesn't have the luxury of not preparing her Black son for the world that we live in. And I shouldn't have the luxury of pretending that racism and privilege don't exist in my own home. And it's hard, but if we don't talk to them about it, how could we ever possibly hope that anything is going to change?
A lot of what's happening with systemic racism is rooted in the economics of the country, and slavery was an economic decision. Part of where we're going to need to begin to, fix the problem is allowing wealth to circulate in the Black community. I mean, people don't even know things like Brooks Brothers suits made all of their original money dressing slaves. And so now you look at a descendant of Brooks Brothers who's still sitting on that board, is still benefiting from money that was earned during slavery. So when you're talking about people who were able to build this wealth that they've been able to pass down generationally, and this financial knowledge that they've been able to pass down generationally, you have to talk about those slaves who the debt was built generationally and the lack of knowledge about finances. And so to say that, oh, that happened all those years ago is not affecting us, but it is still affecting us today. And then you look at a situation like Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa was known as Black Wall Street because it was a thriving financial community. And then they destroyed an entire town of people for doing nothing other than thriving. This is not taught in the history books. So people don't know the intentional devastation of the circulation of the Black dollar. And then there's this conversation and this narrative of why can't you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps? And it's this is comical to me.
People are like, well, what did you gain? Well, what did you get from looting? I think that as long as we're focusing on the what, we're not focusing on the why. And that's
It's really easy to dismiss why people could be so far to this state that you would have rioters and looters. And that's not that I'm anti-peaceful protest, because I'm not. But my point is, Colin Kaepernick was a peaceful protest and nobody was a fan of that. And so this idea that we're consistently being asked to protest in a way that is acceptable to the people we deem our oppressors is kind of a ridiculous notion to me.
When we're hearing painful truths about systemic injustice and racism, sometimes, among the best intentioned white people, there's this knee-jerk reaction of not me. And we seek that pat on the back and that reassurance of I'm one of the good ones, right? But systemic injustice and racism exist along a spectrum, and we all participate in and benefit from this system. And so whether it's your family, whether it's your corporation, your faith community, we have the ability to begin incorporating change in the way that we talk and interact with those communities. But if we don't think that we're part of the problem, we're never going to start. There's more work to be done, and we anoint ourselves with the badge of ally, or like the badge of wokeness. But being an ally, it's not a destination that you arrive at. It's a journey that you're on, and you're going to get things wrong. I get things wrong. I will forever. In those moments, my job is not to defend myself, but to take a step back and say, how do I learn from this, and how do I go forward? When we know better, we do better.
This is probably the largest global protest that I've seen in my generation. My only hope is that after everyone's gone back inside and the protests have ended, what are we going to do for next steps and how people are going to participate in that? But I'll take this victory right now of people giving up their silence, because that has been a big first step.